Something is happening at the U.S. border that's raising alarms across Washington. Every day, more and more migrants are arriving, not just from Latin America, but from Asia. Yes, Asia. From war-torn regions to nations dealing with economic collapse, a wave of desperate individuals are risking everything to cross into the United States. And now, border officials are sounding the alarm. This isn't just a trickle, it's a flood. With surges in unauthorized entries, backlogged immigration courts, and rising political pressure, these 10 countries are now at the center of a growing national debate. In today's countdown, we're breaking down the 10 Asian nations sending the most illegal immigrants to the U.S. in 2025. Some of these countries might surprise you, others are making headlines for all the wrong reasons. And when you see who tops this list, well, it may just change how you view the global migration crisis. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more engaging content. Number 10. Afghanistan. Afghanistan's collapse continues to push its people into dangerous journeys. After the Taliban's return to power and America's chaotic withdrawal, thousands of Afghans who once worked with U.S. forces were left stranded. In 2025, the situation worsened. According to recent reports, the U.S. has begun deporting even those who held temporary protected status. That includes former military interpreters and aid workers. But they're still coming. Driven by fear of persecution and limited economic opportunities, Afghans are taking the long route through Latin America, hoping to reach the southern U.S. border, and many are making it. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security has flagged a notable rise in unauthorized entries from Afghanistan, many of them arriving through secondary routes across Panama, Colombia, and Mexico. Even more disturbing? Some of these individuals are being detained and deported, despite their past cooperation with the U.S. military. This has triggered international backlash and human rights concerns. But inside America, the political debate is focused less on compassion and more on control. Afghanistan may be far from U.S. shores, but its crisis is now spilling over America's borders. Is this about survival or something bigger? Why do you think so many are fleeing Afghanistan? Number 9. China. China isn't the first country that comes to mind when Americans think of illegal immigration. But in 2025, that perception is changing rapidly. While official deportation numbers remain shockingly low, only 288 Chinese nationals were deported in 2023, Border Patrol agents recorded over 24,000 encounters with Chinese migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. What's behind this surge? Analysts point to a combination of China's economic instability, government crackdowns, and a growing underground network that smuggles migrants through Latin America and up to the U.S. border. It's not just about escaping poverty. It's about fleeing surveillance, censorship, and fear of persecution. What makes this trend more alarming is how underreported it is. The low deportation numbers give a false sense of control, but the reality on the ground tells a different story. Immigration officers are overwhelmed, and the system isn't built to process such a sharp spike from a country that traditionally wasn't on the radar. The U.S. is now scrambling to tighten loopholes in asylum processing and background checks for high-volume countries like China. But many fear the measures are too little, too late. Are these migrants escaping politics, poverty, or something the media isn't telling us? What's your take? Number 8. India. India has always had deep-rooted ties with the United States, especially through legal immigration, tech jobs, and education. But beneath that legitimate traffic, a darker undercurrent is flowing in 2025. According to U.S. immigration authorities, Indian nationals now make up one of the fastest-growing groups attempting to cross the border illegally. And the reason? Human smuggling rings and corrupt travel agents back home. The U.S. recently imposed visa bans on several Indian travel facilitators who were caught selling fake documents and coaching migrants on how to exploit America's asylum system. These aren't just one-off operations. They're part of a sophisticated network that has funneled thousands toward the U.S. border, especially via Latin America. What's most troubling is how these journeys are being marketed back in India. Some families are spending their life savings based on the promise of an American future, only to end up stuck in detention centers or deported. Indian officials have vowed to crack down on illegal migration facilitators, but for now, the U.S. border continues to see a steady wave of Indian nationals, many arriving with heartbreaking stories and broken dreams. With a booming economy, why are so many still leaving India illegally? Drop your opinion below. Number 7. Vietnam. Vietnam has increasingly found itself on the radar of U.S. immigration officials in 2025. At first glance, it might seem surprising. But behind the headlines is a complex story of economic pressure, political unrest, and a rapidly growing exodus. According to Reuters, after facing economic backlash and tariff threats from the U.S., Vietnam has been quietly cooperating with American deportation requests. But that cooperation hasn't stemmed the tide of migrants. Instead, it's fueled a desperate push by Vietnamese nationals to cross illegally, fearing harsher crackdowns in the near future. Border Patrol data now shows a significant uptick in Vietnamese encounters at the southern border. Immigration lawyers warn that smuggling networks are exploiting the fear, charging families thousands for dangerous crossings into Texas and California. Meanwhile, legal pathways are being choked off. U.S. visa approvals for Vietnamese nationals have declined sharply in the last 6 months, adding to the sense of urgency. With economic prospects dwindling and safe migration channels narrowing, Vietnam's migration crisis is accelerating. Is Vietnam's growth leaving some behind? Why are people risking everything to reach the U.S.? Before we move on, hit the like button to boost this video in the algorithm and support our work. Number 6. Pakistan. In 2025, Pakistan is grappling with a refugee exodus from Afghanistan and growing domestic instability, and that pressure is spilling across borders. In March, Pakistan gave an ultimatum. All undocumented foreigners, especially Afghan refugees, must leave the country by the end of the month. That sparked chaos at border towns, overwhelmed transit camps, and triggered a wave of desperate migrations toward the west, many ending up at the U.S. border. But here's where it gets even more complex. According to Reuters, Pakistan has also asked holders of Afghan citizen cards, legal refugee documents, to leave. This move blurred the lines between legal protection and mass expulsion, and in response, human rights organizations raised alarm over forced displacements. Meanwhile, U.S. immigration enforcement has ramped up scrutiny of arrivals from Pakistan. ICE reports show increased detentions, while visa approvals for Pakistani nationals have plummeted. Caught in the middle are thousands fleeing persecution and instability, only to face long odds and longer detention at the U.S. border. Pakistan's crisis isn't just domestic anymore, it's showing up in America's immigration data. Is this a warning sign about Pakistan's internal stability? What do you think? Before we dive into number 5, quick heads up. If you're hooked on stories like this, you'll love what I share on YouTube Peaks. From behind-the-scenes research to early topic drops, it's where the real deep dives happen. Links below. Come join the Inside Circle. Number 5, Bangladesh. Bangladesh might not make headlines like other nations, but its quiet surge in illegal immigration to the U.S. has alarmed border officials. In 2025, Customs and Border Protection reported over 9,000 encounters with Bangladeshi nationals, a number that has more than doubled since just 2 years ago. What's behind this rise? Economic instability, limited job opportunities, and environmental displacement have created a wave of desperation. Entire communities are falling into poverty, and some families are pooling all their resources just to send one member across the globe. Smuggling routes through Latin America are increasingly being used, with Bangladeshi migrants arriving in Ecuador or Brazil before making the long and dangerous trek north. And it's not just a humanitarian issue. U.S. officials have flagged this pipeline as a national security risk, with growing concern about vetting and documentation. The U.S. has responded by tightening visa controls and expanding biometric tracking for South Asian arrivals. Still, the desperation in Bangladesh is far from over, and the journey continues, despite the rising risks. Has Bangladesh hit a breaking point, or is this just a poverty-driven exodus? Share your view. Number 4, Nepal. Nepal, known for its breathtaking landscapes and spiritual tourism, is now part of a very different conversation in 2025. A record number of Nepali migrants are arriving at the southern U.S. border, with DHS sources confirming more than 11,000 illegal crossings in the past year alone. For a landlocked country surrounded by powerful neighbors, Nepal has been grappling with its own internal crises. A flailing economy, rising inflation, and the collapse of its tourism sector have pushed thousands of Nepalis to look for work abroad, especially in the U.S. The route: many fly to Central America under looser visa regimes, then endure the perilous land journey toward the American border. And unlike in years past, it's not just young men. Families, women, and even children are making the trip. Washington has begun working with Mexican and Panamanian authorities to flag suspicious travel clusters, and the U.S. is reportedly pressuring Kathmandu to rein in trafficking rings facilitating this exodus. But in Nepal's villages, the message is still clear. The American dream, even if illegal, is worth risking everything for. Nepal's crisis rarely makes headlines, but should we be paying more attention? Number 3. Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka may not immediately come to mind when thinking about illegal immigration, but the reality in 2025 paints a very different picture. The economic situation on the island nation has grown increasingly dire, driving more desperate citizens to seek new lives abroad. With food inflation still hovering above 30% and youth unemployment soaring, many are risking everything to get out, legally or not. U.S. authorities have reported a significant rise in Sri Lankan nationals attempting to enter through Central America and the U.S.-Mexico border. Human trafficking rings have been exposed in recent months, preying on vulnerable families and funneling them through complex migration routes that span multiple continents. It's a tragic development from a nation once known more for its tourism and trade than desperate migration. And with Sri Lanka's economic reforms stagnating and political divisions widening, the exodus isn't slowing down. The United States now views the surge as a potential security and humanitarian issue, stepping up efforts to monitor routes used by Sri Lankan nationals in coordination with Latin American nations. Have you ever thought about what drives someone to leave everything behind? For many Sri Lankans, it's no longer a question of opportunity. It's survival. After years of turmoil, is Sri Lanka running out of options for its people? Comment your thoughts. Number 2. Myanmar. Myanmar's inclusion on this list is a grim reminder of the chaos engulfing Southeast Asia in recent years. Following the 2021 military coup, the country has been in a near-constant state of turmoil. And now in 2025, civil conflict and ethnic violence continue to escalate, pushing thousands of people to flee every month. The U.S. has seen a dramatic increase in undocumented arrivals from Myanmar, many of whom have fled refugee camps in Thailand or trekked through multiple countries in Southeast Asia to seek asylum. With the military junta tightening its grip, whole communities are being displaced, and the desperation is palpable. In fact, just this year, the United Nations warned that over 2 million people are internally displaced within Myanmar, and more than 50,000 have already attempted to migrate to Western nations. The U.S. is not just seeing a trickle, it's a rising tide. Smugglers and criminal syndicates have exploited the situation, offering perilous journeys in exchange for everything these families own. And in the end, many don't make it. Those who do arrive face legal limbo, uncertainty, and increasing scrutiny from immigration enforcement. Can you imagine fleeing your home under threat of death, only to face an uncertain future thousands of miles away? With Myanmar in chaos, is this wave of migration just beginning? How do you see it unfolding? Number 1. Laos. While Laos rarely makes headlines, it's now making waves in Washington for all the wrong reasons. In 2025, this quiet Southeast Asian nation is emerging as one of the most unexpected sources of illegal immigration to the United States. Intelligence reports and Homeland Security officials have flagged Laos as a new transit hub, a jumping-off point for migrants from across Asia aiming to enter the U.S. through unconventional land and sea routes. What makes Laos unique is its position in a complex regional network. As borders tighten in neighboring countries, human trafficking syndicates have rerouted operations through Laos's porous checkpoints and rural trails. The U.S. Border Patrol has identified a growing number of migrants of Laotian origin, many of whom are undocumented and carry no verifiable travel histories. These aren't just individuals escaping poverty. They're families, young adults, even professionals, desperate for a way out. Making matters worse, Laos has no formal deportation agreement with the U.S. This means individuals who are detained can't be easily repatriated. That legal loophole is being exploited, putting additional strain on U.S. immigration enforcement and sparking urgent calls for new policy measures in Washington. In short, Laos has become the new blind spot in America's immigration dilemma. Quiet, underestimated, and now dangerously relevant. Why is Laos topping the list? Is this the most overlooked crisis in Asia right now? These aren't just headlines or numbers. They're red flags for a system under siege. From Laos to Afghanistan, the routes may vary, but the message is clear. The current global crisis in immigration is more complex and chaotic than ever before. Donald Trump's renewed immigration crackdown might promise security, but with Asia's political unrest, economic desperation, and crumbling visa agreements, the flow isn't slowing. It's shifting. Are we prepared for the evolving tactics? The growing number of undocumented arrivals from countries we never expected? Or are we just patching cracks in a dam that's already breaking? Let us know what you think in the comments. Are tighter borders the solution? or just a distraction from the real issues? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if you want more uncensored looks at how global dynamics are reshaping the American landscape. Thanks for watching Globe Discoveries.